Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian turned book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today I get to share with you this book called Remarkable Women in Verse, The Small Book of Big Achievements by Julia Stebbing. This story is not super long, but it takes into account 4 of the most influential women in our history. One of them is Rosa Parks, Helen Keller, Anne Sullivan, and Florence Nightingale. So this story is written in verse the whole time. So it's in stanzas of 4 lines and they're rhyming couplets. So in each of these sections, it starts out with an introduction to the character that they're talking about with very specific words that go along with the achievements that they made, along with a timeline of their life. So this is the section about Rosa Parks, and it has 4 subsections within it. Each of these has little repetition of some of the most important stanzas, so it kind of repeats the mantra as you go along. And it starts out with her childhood, what happens after she leaves school, and then what she does next. So when Rosa sits on the bus and makes an impact in the civil rights movement in the United States. So the way that this is written, each of the lines flows really nicely. The fact that they rhyme is really nice. It gets readers to get to know history in a way that's accessible and interesting to listen to. It's also interesting to speak aloud. So for especially young adult readers who maybe are reluctant to learn about history from a traditional textbook, this book is a really great way to get them involved in history in a more accessible and enjoyable way. Then at the end of each section, you find a glossary, and that includes several of the words that are included in that section with a definition next to it, so you don't have to wait till the very end of the book to find out what those words mean. The next section focuses on Helen Keller and Anne Sullivan, and I like how they're pulled out of this collection of words here on the side. So Helen Keller grew up not being able to speak or hear or see, and Anne Sullivan, because of her background, connected with Helen and got her to be able to understand the world and be less angry about it. So they together changed a lot of the course of human understanding about deafness, blindness, and communication in general. And their friendship is one that is nice to emulate as you go forward as well, because they looked past what was traditionally acceptable to figure out what worked for both of them. And just like in Rosa's section, there's a glossary at the end, and there's this repeated section too. So in Rosa's section, the repeated mantra here is in blue, and in Helen's, it's in black, but this idea is the same, and they are in italics as well. Lastly, it's Florence Nightingale talking about her time in the war. And this is a little bit different from the others. So some of these stanzas are a little bit longer. So instead of being 4 lines, they're 6. But it's still the same idea. So it has history presented in poetry, and it's really captivating. It makes you want to learn more about what happened to them and what life was really like. The length of the poems actually gives you a lot of information, but when you want to learn a little bit more, this is a great starting point. So as you can see, this is not a super long book. There's ample white space, so this is a great introduction to influential women in history for perhaps reluctant young adult readers or ones who enjoy poetry and learning history in that regard. And if this sounds like a great fit for you, I hope you look for it at your favorite bookstore.